Straight ahead, protecting IVF. Republican Senator Ted Cruz talks about his bill to guarantee in vitro fertilization across the country and why his Democratic challenger, Congressman Colin Allred, is criticizing him. Blocking school choice, why Democratic state representatives John Bryant and Rafael Anchia believe they can keep Governor Abbott and conservatives from passing a school choice bill in the Texas House next year. One-on-one, Dallas Police Chief Eddie Garcia sits down with Doug Dunbar to discuss his recent contract restructuring and why he believes it could be his last. Good morning, I'm Jack Fink. Get your fix for Texas politics. Eye on Politics starts now. Hello and welcome to Eye on Politics. Hope you're having a great weekend so far. We begin with President Biden's controversial new executive order on illegal immigration. The order will keep migrants from seeking asylum at the southern border when the daily encounters between the ports of entry average 2,500 for 1 week. The recent numbers we've been tracking show an average of 3,800 migrants a day. The new policy will remain in place until the daily average drops to 1,500. The president's executive order comes after bipartisan legislation developed in the U.S. Senate to address this issue did not pass in that chamber. During his administration, illegal immigration at the southwest border has soared to new records. Statistics from U.S. Customs and Border Protection show between February 1st, 2021, President Biden's first full month in office, through the end of this past April, there have been more than 7.8 million encounters at the southwest border. Encounters are defined as migrants who are apprehended and those processed for being expelled from the country. President Biden announced the new policy on Tuesday.
Doing nothing is not an option. We have to act. We must act consistent with both our law and our values. I'm moving past Republican obstruction and using the executive authorities available to me as president to do what I can on my own to address the border.
As you might expect, former president and presumptive Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump blasted President Biden's order.
The truth is that Joe Biden's executive order won't stop the invasion. It's weak and it's pathetic. It will actually make the invasion worse.
Reaction from members of the House and Senate fell along party lines.
And my question to him is, why did you wait until now if you were serious about doing it? The simple answer is he's not serious about securing the border.
I applaud the president for taking strong, decisive action to do something that BS partisan politics killed earlier this year.
Governor Greg Abbott described the president's executive order as a disaster in an interview with our Ken Molestina last week.
What this order does, it basically says for the first 2,500 people, you can get in free. And seemingly no consequences, and then after the first 2,500, they say that they will stop providing asylum. But they don't say they will stop illegal immigration from coming across the border.
Ken also spoke with Paul Hunker, a former chief counsel for ICE here in Dallas.
The law says that people can apply for asylum under INA Section 208, and he's saying another part of the immigration law allows him to deny entry. But I think that's inconsistent with the law that gives non-citizens the right to apply for asylum. President Biden rightly criticized President Trump for similar bars and bans, and now he's doing that because of the upcoming election.
And Ken Molestina joins me now. So Ken, how is this going to work?
First and foremost, we should point out that this is not shutting down the border. This shuts down the asylum process at the border. So that's very important to say. In a nutshell, here's how it works. At any time that a 7-day average comes out to 2,500 illegal border crossings in between ports of entry, at that point, the restrictions are triggered. Currently, they are triggered, and they will remain triggered until that 7-day average, until you have 2 weeks, as a matter of fact, of an average of 1,500. So the number has to drop significantly. At that point, then they'll start sort of, they'll reset the counter, so to speak, until it gets up to 2,500 again. And again, what's going to happen is that all of the asylum claims will be denied. People will more than likely be deported on the spot. We understand that part of this plan is also to have more immigration officers and more asylum officers, specifically asylum officers at the border, that can make these determinations. So there are going to be a couple of exceptions to this, and unaccompanied minors would be one exception that they don't really count towards that number. Another exception that we heard of is for people who are immigrating and trying to cross the border who come from their country of origin is an ocean away. You know, you have people coming from Asia, from African countries that don't necessarily have agreements with Mexico or the United States to take these migrants the way that maybe Central American migrants do. So in the case that, you know, you take a family of 4 coming from any country in Africa, for example, and Mexico doesn't have an agreement with that country to take them in, well, then the United States will have to take them in.
And as we've known for so many months, experts have said the cartels have really driven illegal immigration.
Yes.
So I'm wondering what impact this executive order could have on that.
This would severely hamper those operations, because if you are someone who is trying to make an illegal entry into the United States through the southern border and you're looking to physically get there, and you know that the border's asylum process is shut down, then you're not going to be looking for someone to pay someone to take you up there. These are folks that are very well versed in what is happening. They are very well connected, and they are aware of what is happening as well. So you can believe that whenever the asylum process is shut down, the way it is currently as we speak today, this moment, that folks know that they're not going to be seeking the services of a human smuggler to get them to the border until they know they have a shot, right?
Ken Molestino, we really appreciate your expertise on this.
Yeah, you got it.
Thanks,
Jack.
so much. And coming up in the biggest state race this fall for U.S. Senate, Republican incumbent Ted Cruz and his Democratic challenger, Congressman Colin Allred, duke it out over protections for IVF. Plus, Democratic state representatives are vowing to block school choice from being passed in the next legislative session starting in January. But first, Governor Greg Abbott announced a new border security initiative this past week. Sarah Jenkins explains in this week's brief.
The day after President Joe Biden revealed new asylum restrictions, Governor Greg Abbott announced the creation of a partnership with the Texas Department of Public Safety, launching Texas's top 10 most wanted criminal illegal immigrants. It's an effort to arrest repeat offenders who enter the country illegally and are wanted for dangerous crimes committed in Texas. In a news release announcing the initiative, Abbott said Texas will continue to take unprecedented action to protect Texans and our state from President Biden's border crisis. Funded by the governor's public safety office, Texas Crime Stoppers will offer cash rewards to any person who provides information that leads to the arrest of one of Texas's top 10. Like other 10 most wanted lists, anyone on this new list may be selected as the department's monthly featured fugitive.
Welcome back to Eye on Politics. Aside from the presidential race this fall, the biggest race in Texas is for U.S. Senate. Democratic North Texas Congressman Colin Allred is hoping to unseat two-term Republican incumbent Ted Cruz. We're less than 5 months away from Election Day, and the Real Clear Politics average of polls shows Cruz leading Allred by 8 percentage points. We asked Cruz about this and other policies he's advocating, including IVF and the economy and jobs. But first, I asked him about the state of the race.
We are campaigning hard. I think we have a real fight. We are taking this very seriously. Chuck Schumer's made clear I'm his #1 target in the country, and I fully expect the Democrats to spend between $100 and $150 million in this race trying to beat me. Now, that being said, I do think there's an enormous difference between my record and Colin Allred's record. And I think the people of Texas embrace common sense. My priorities in the Senate have been jobs and freedom and security, and I think the people of Texas want low taxes. We want reasonable regulations.
When you look at the top issues of people who are, their concerns, inflation and just the cost of living, what is it about your policies that could address this, that could make it easier for people?
The principal driver of inflation is that the federal government has spent trillions of dollars it doesn't have. It's borrowed trillions of dollars it doesn't have. It's printed trillions of dollars it doesn't have. And that happened in massive amounts when the Democrats won the White House and both houses of Congress. This problem of inflation has been made particularly bad because the Democrats have waged a war on oil and gas and energy in Texas. And listen, Texas is the world's energy superpower. We just had an energy roundtable here in Dallas. I sat down with energy leaders throughout North Texas. We had a really robust conversation. If you look at the average Texas family has paid over $5,100 more in energy costs since Joe Biden became president. That's real money out of working families' budgets. You see it when you pay your electricity bill. You see it when you pay your heating bill. You see it when you fill up your car or your truck with gas. And there's a reason for that. When you have a federal government putting regulatory policies in place that hammer Texas energy producers, it drives costs up.
I want to ask you about a bill that you and Alabama Senator Katie Britt introduced, and that is protecting in vitro fertilization.
Yes.
Give me the main points of this and why it's important.
The Alabama Supreme Court several months ago had a decision that produced a lot of uncertainty, that produced a lot of fear, that scared a lot of parents into fearing that IVF technology would be taken away, that they would be prevented from being able to access this medical technology to have children. And so I went and I approached Katie Britt, senator from Alabama, a good friend of mine, and she strongly supports IVF. I strongly support IVF. I think it is incredibly important technology. And I said, listen, let's come together. Let's draft simple, straightforward legislation that puts an ironclad guarantee in federal law that IVF will be protected, that every parent in Texas and every other state that wants to access IVF, that you'll be able to access that technology. And so I drafted that legislation with Katie Britt. We introduced it last week. It would put into federal law a guarantee that no state, no local government can ban IVF. And my hope is that we'll see bipartisan agreement, that we'll see Republicans and Democrats come together.
And what do you say to Congressman Allred, who says this bill is meant to mask your opposition to abortion rights?
Well, that's simply not correct. And look, if you look at Congressman Allred's position on abortion, he has a problem, and it's a problem Democrats have across the country, which is Congressman Allred's position on abortion is really radical and extreme. It's outside the mainstream. His position is he supports unlimited abortion on demand, literally up until the moment of birth, partial birth abortion in the 39th week and 40th week of pregnancy. Now, that's an extreme position.
We also interviewed Congressman Allred and asked him about Senator Cruz's IVF bill.
Well, let's be really clear. We are here because of Ted Cruz and because of extremists like him who have placed technology like IVF at risk. This is for folks who are trying to start a family. And we've seen in Alabama and other states, including here in Texas, fear following the policies that folks like Ted Cruz have pursued, that they're not going to have the opportunity to do that. And so, to me, it's cynical, but it's kind of like the thief trying to sell you new locks after they've robbed your house.
Allred took part in a roundtable discussion in Dallas with veterans on Memorial Day. He discussed legislation he's developing.
I've got a bipartisan bill to try and better inform veterans about the benefits that are available to them, and that's something that we have to do a better job of doing. But ultimately, this has to be about understanding that when we send folks into harm's way, or when folks serve our country, that we've made a solemn promise to them that when they come back, that we'll keep our promises to them, take care of them, give them access to education, to housing, to job training opportunities so that they can pursue their version of the American dream.
Democratic state representatives from Dallas are vowing to block a school choice bill favored by Governor Greg Abbott and conservative Republicans in the Texas House. We spoke with Representatives Rafael Anchia and John Bryant more than 1 week after the House gained 8 more conservative lawmakers in North Texas alone. They told me they may support the current House Speaker, Dade Phelan, for the top spot once again.
Clearly, what we're witnessing is a blood sport on the Republican side. You've got just folks who I've served with for a long time who are very, very conservative, somehow getting outflanked to the right. On our side, you've got Democrats who are united, ready to play an important role in the next legislative session, ready to make common sense policies for Texans that are going to uplift our entire state.
We've never seen a situation before where out-of-state billionaire money was given to the governor to help him defeat Republicans in the Republican primary, Republicans who had voted with him on everything except vouchers. But it wasn't enough. 99% is not enough with this new extreme element that controls the Republican Party.
And let me ask you just about Speaker Phelan and the fact, do you think you will be supporting Speaker Phelan?
I'll be voting for a Democrat for Speaker of the House unless some accommodation that's meaningful is made to protect some Democratic priorities, particularly public education. And I don't know that I see it likely that he's able to reach any type of accommodation with us like that, but I'm certainly open to it. He is a fair person on the floor of the House. He runs the House according to the rules, but he's a Republican and he's committed to their agenda.
Like John, I'm open to it, but we really do need a person who's going to protect the House as an institution and stay true to the ideals that have made the House great, which means that members of the minority are accorded committee chairs in proportion to the partisan makeup of the House. That's something we've had in place for a long time under Democratic and Republican speakers.
And Governor Abbott, as you know, said after this past primary runoff, said that he believes he's got the votes to pass school choice. If that's so, how do you intend to block it?
First, we intend to defeat Republican incumbents with Democratic challengers and increase our numbers. Right now, it's 86 to 64. We have 43% of the members. Second, we'll have to employ all of the parliamentary tools that are at our disposal.
The bottom line is that vouchers are wildly unpopular. I mean, if you put it on the ballot, it would fail. No question. That's why the governor is trying to run the straight in the Republican primary, where he could bring hundreds of millions of dollars to bear around the state to try to make a difference. Because if he knows that he has to run a statewide campaign on this, he loses. Full stop. We're not going to get a voucher bill that both the House and the Senate agree on and that the governor agrees on. It's really hard to pass a bill, Jack. You know, people think that the legislative process is a bill passing machine. It's a bill killing machine. There are a million ways to kill a bill and only one way to pass it.
Nearly 4 dozen Republicans in the Texas House and Republican nominees for the House have signed a letter saying they will only vote for a Speaker of the House who commits to having Republican committee chairs. Coming up, Dallas Police Chief Eddie Garcia sits down with Doug Dunbar to talk about why he's staying in Dallas for at least another 3 years when Eye on Politics returns. A few weeks ago, Dallas Police Chief Eddie Garcia decided he would remain in Dallas for an additional 3 years. He recently spoke with Doug Dunbar about his department's success reducing violent crime, where things can still improve, and also about why he believes once his contract is up, we'll be talking about his retirement.
Do you see yourself here beyond the current 3-year deal that you have?
Well, you know, I'm hopeful that we'll be able to have a transition by then. I mean, you know, the hope is that we'll be able to accomplish that, and I'm confident that we will.
So I hear that is this in your head is your last go around as chief of the Dallas Police Department.
Yes.
Morning.
Morning. If Dallas Police Chief Eddie Garcia is guilty of anything, it's of having a plan. He says he landed in Dallas in 2021 from California with 4 goals in mind: reduce violent crime, increase morale in the department, develop community trust, and lastly, make sure his successor won't come from a search agency.
Do you see any people among your staff right now who could be that?
Absolutely.
Next chief?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's several viable candidates within this police department that can be the chief of police at some point.
When it comes to his first goal of reducing violent crime, Garcia's leadership has led to a steady reduction. Part of the reason council, the mayor, and acting city manager all wanted him to stay. The latest numbers: aggravated assault down year-to-date 22%. Murders in the city down 26% year-to-date. As to why, Garcia says it's something he has that many chiefs around this country do not.
You don't necessarily have a relationship where the associations are in line with their command staff. And you don't necessarily have associations where the police department's in line with the city manager, or in line with council, or in line with the mayor, or in line with the community. And we have that here. And
so how do you explain why you have it, though? Is it just because of who you are and how you conduct yourself and how you lead? Is it a little bit of luck? Is it both?
You know, it comes down to, you know, it's hard work.
This past Thursday, June 6th, marked the 80th anniversary of D-Day, invasion of Normandy, the largest amphibious invasion in military history. To commemorate the historic date, a group of veterans who are now Republican lawmakers in Congress took part in a parachute jump in France. They include Congressman Keith Self of McKinney. During the jump, Self carried 2 medals from World War II veteran Staff Sergeant Starlin Lee Click. Click received the Purple Heart and the Bronze Star for his courageous service. Well, before we go, we have to say let's go Mavs as they continue battling the Boston Celtics in the NBA championship. In a post on X, Senator Ted Cruz said he made a friendly bet with Massachusetts Senator Ed Markey. Quote, "If the Dallas Mavs win, he will provide my office with some delicious Massachusetts seafood and Sam Adams beer. If the Celtics win, I will provide his team with some legendary Texas barbecue and Shiner beer. Plus, the loser will wear the winner's jersey. Go Mavs." And that is all for Eye on Politics this week. I am Jack Fink. I am listening, and we are listening at CBS News Texas. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you again next Sunday. And from all of us here, have a great rest of your weekend.